Hey and welcome to the second video in my video series about how to set up a free food assistant based on OpenClaw AI. Today we're starting with the setup and the initial configuration, but first of all let's peek into the architecture diagram which I walked you through in the last video already. You can see that on the top left, that's the major part we're talking about today. We have OpenClaw and that is installed on some environment. And that can be a full-blown Linux server, your personal smartphone running Android. That can also be a Mac system, or like in this case and in this video series, it can be a Windows machine running the so-called Windows Subsystem for Linux, which is a virtually hosted Linux kernel. And I go with the subsystem for Linux because I already have this notebook, an old one I don't use anymore, even with Windows 10, which is a security issue. And I think that's important to understand, the whole installation of OpenClaw is a whole big security issue. And I think everything about the topic has already been said. I can put a link in the description of this video if you want to have more details, but in general, it is recommended not to install OpenClaw in your personal working environment. So always pick an isolated environment. And if you don't have separate hardware, then you can also install OpenClaw in a virtual machine hosted by an external provider outside of your own network. There are also a lot of tutorials out there on YouTube explaining how to host that virtual machine. Okay, then let's go ahead with our Windows Subsystem for Linux. We're starting with a shell here, cmd, and we're starting with administrative rights. And our first check would be, the command is wsl -- version. That will show us the version currently installed, and we should make sure that we have 2 point something here just to be on the safe side. So I will prompt wsl --install -d for distribution, and I go with Ubuntu. I recommend you not to use OpenClaw as a username, because I did that the first time I was playing around a little bit with it. And the problem is then that you have a user directory OpenClaw and the application directory is then .openclaw, which causes a lot of confusion. So if you want to do yourself a favor, just say, I don't know, AI assistant or so, and then it's clear. And then you put a password. And that's already the Linux prompt. We use the curl command to start the installation of OpenClaw. The install shell script ends with the onboarding of OpenClaw, and we first need to confirm that we use it single user, because for multi-user, additional measures are needed. So we say yes and enter. Onboarding mode, quick start. And then first of all, we need to pick our LLM provider. And there are basically 2 ways of tackling this. You either already have a subscription to one or more of these providers. Let's say you have an OpenAI account. Then you can, of course, pick the existing one, create an API key there, and then enter the key and use it also for your OpenClaw installation. Or maybe you don't have any subscription, and then I have a recommendation for you, because it saves some money, and it's also a very good choice because it can choose between different LLMs, and that is OpenRouter. For OpenRouter, you also need an API key, and I will show you how to create that. I go to openrouter.ai, and then it already says the unified interface for LLMs. And as the name implies, you can then route to different frontier models. For example, they have Claude Opus, they have Gemini, and they have a lot of others. And they also have free of charge models, which is an interesting aspect, I think. So you can basically, with no money, use OpenClaw with the free LLMs behind, or you can have a mixed approach. For example, there is an auto mode for OpenRouter, which says pick the LLM that is most sufficient for the prompt you supply. Yeah, and in this case, then it will sometimes route it to a free of charge LLM, and sometimes to a model that will cost you some money. And there is a little trick you need to be aware of when you buy credits here for $10 US, and that's really just a one-time payment, not a regular one. And the daily usage limit of, I think it's 50 in the basic version, goes up to 1,000 calls per day. 1,000 is usually a limit for private use that should be sufficient. And you see that's exactly what I did. I paid the $10 and I have consumed some of it every time the auto mode would pick an LLM that is not free of charge, but mostly it was done with free calls. So as soon as you have your free account with or without paying the $10, you can go to Settings, API Key, and then you can create one here. Yeah, you give it the name, can call it OpenClaw, but I usually try to avoid that. I call it Nova. Then a credit limit. You can say, of course, 0. And also make it, let's say $10 with a monthly reset. And expiration, yeah, let's say also after 30 days, because this is just a proof of concept. Then create, and that's your key already. You copy it, and then I think everybody knows that we don't share this key because you want to avoid others using it and then consuming your credits. Right click to paste the API key and then enter. So in the second selection here, we can now choose which model OpenRouter should forward our calls to, or what I already mentioned, we have other options. One is the auto mode, deciding itself whether to forward it to this or that model. And if you want to make sure that no credits are consumed, or if you don't want to spend the $10, then you simply go with OpenRouter free, and that will make sure every call is forwarded to a free model. I will leave auto because then usually the responses are of a little bit better quality. Enter. In the next step now we set up our communication channel. So OpenClaw has a local chat interface. That means you can call it in your local browser and then basically do all the operations you need to do. But it's of course more interesting to control your OpenClaw from your smartphone, and then depending on which messenger you use, you pick the respective one, Telegram, or in my case it's WhatsApp. And then you can link via the QR code, means that the setup will generate a QR code for you. And then on your smartphone, under settings, link devices, can add OpenClaw as a new device. And we say once again, yes, we want to link. And that is the QR code. Might need to maximize the window. And then you would scan the QR code from the phone. Okay, the link is now established. And in the second step, I would enter my personal phone number here. And I will now check from my smartphone if the link to WhatsApp is really established. And that means I need to add my own telephone number to my address book. And then it's available within WhatsApp. I can start a chat and I can just ask, hello, OpenClaw, are you there? And I get a reply, so that is the proof that the link is intact. I can now add a search provider. Whenever OpenClaw needs to do a web search, it would then use that one. I will skip it for the moment. And I will also skip the configuration of skills. We can do all of that later with the OpenClaw config command. Now we need a new GRP to make sure the OpenClaw command is found, and we say OpenClaw gateway start. And then OpenClaw dashboard to start our web interface, including the local chat. And we take the URL from up here, copy, and paste it into our web browser. And just like in the WhatsApp chat, we say, hello OpenClaw, are you there? And we get a response. Perfect. Now we can see at the top that we have the old version of OpenClaw. So let's update. And it takes a few minutes. And after that, the update should be done. So now we're good to go. There's just one last step, and that is the install of ClawHub as a preparation for our next video. We are done with the basic setup, and in the next video I will show you how to add the skills needed for the food assistant and also how to develop skills on your own.